Hey, welcome back here to the Central PA Pour. I am Brett.
And I'm Dave.
And no Kevin today.
He's not here. I'm sorry.
If he is, he's awful quiet.
I didn't notice.
I kicked him off camera. Anyways, hey, make sure you give us a like and subscribe on our YouTube and look us up wherever you get your audio podcast, social media at Central PA Pour. And Dave, we just had a brew fest here as we're recording this. The Winter Brew Fest by Double Barrel and Sign of the Horse. We had a great time.
Yeah, that is a great facility they have out there. I mean, it's just unreal, you know.
And we met some new people that we're hoping to get on here. One of them we have sitting here waiting to bring into the studio.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a good time. We actually had our beer released there.
Yep. You know, a lot of people kind of liked it. That's what I liked about it.
Yeah. Our Scottish Wee Heavy, Devils in Skirts. So
Yep.
it was a good time.
Yeah.
We like doing, we've done 3 or 4 live events like that. So they're looking to do it again. So make sure you keep an eye out for a brew fest at the Double Barrel in Redline.
Yeah, we'll probably be there.
Well, we'll be there.
Yeah.
We'll be there. Well, let's bring in our guest here, and I'm going to welcome him in here. This is Brad from Alecraft Brewery. Welcome to the Central PA Pour.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, man. It's nice to put a face to the emails and conversations. So nice to meet you. Now, you weren't at the brew fest that we were at, but your stand was, and that's how we did get your beer in studio.
Yeah, we had our head brewer, Gary, there. So you had an opportunity to meet him, I think.
Yes. So you're not the head brewer anymore. You stepped away?
Yeah, essentially. It started with my business partner, Ken, and I doing almost all the brewing. But after a while, running a brewery becomes as taxing as actually brewing the beer. So we within the first 2 years or so, we hired a brewer. And it's actually it's the same guy that we have now, Gary. He was our first brewer. So he left for a while, went to Heavy Seas, and came back.
Hey, I like Heavy Seas. I've been down there quite a several times. Actually, I was just down there a couple weeks ago, and I came back with another 6-pack, or actually 2 6-packs. So that's a good little place down there. So tell us a little bit about Alecraft Brewery.
Sure. So my wife and I, this kind of started as a dream to be in the beer industry. We started by growing hops in 2010. We moved out to the middle of nowhere in Harford County, Maryland, just over the PA line, and started growing hops. About 3 years later, we opened a homebrew supply shop. So we started homebrewing right out of college, and then we kind of wanted an outlet for some of the hops we were growing. We were hoping at the time to expand that business, and started in downtown Bel Air with a little 700 square foot homebrew supply shop. Taught classes every weekend, got to brew with the local homebrew scene there, and met a lot of people. And by 2017 or so, we kind of were at the point where we thought we could open our first nano brewery. You know, it was a 1-barrel system, also in downtown Bel Air at a new location. And that location grew to the point that we were ready to expand again, and then COVID hit.
So that damn pandemic ain't. That damn pandemic hurt a lot of things.
Yeah, coming out of COVID, we reconnected with the partners that were ready to expand with us before the pandemic, and we were ready to go with a relocation into Harford County. Fortunately, met with some friction there with the local government, and ended up kind of going back to the drawing pad, and decided to do our flagship location right across the border in Pennsylvania, in a little town that my wife and I really liked. We rode our bikes through there on the NCR, York County Heritage Trail all the time, and just thought that would be a place to go, given the friction there in Harford County. So that's where we came to our flagship location in Railroad. Took a couple years to build out, and we opened December 30th, 2022.
Wow. And I will say, my wife and I went down to New Freedom a few weeks ago to visit Martin at Gunpowder Falls, because we had recently recorded with him. And I'm like, well, shit, we're going to go over here. Alecraft's like a mile up the road. I said, I've been wanting to stop in there all the time. nice facility. Beautiful. Absolutely
Thank you.
beautiful. It's 2 floors, right? First, top and
Yeah.
bottom. So
Yeah.
it's quite a bit of people to fill that up. But I mean, it's a nice facility, and I can't imagine it. The location, you're right on the rail trail. You get them bikers that are running down there like, oh, I could get a beer. Just burn a bunch of calories. Let's put them back in. So
Right. It's almost like I had that thought myself on a bike.
you did. I mean, you said you were riding, you like to ride the bikes up there. So yeah, see, I do see that you like hiking and stuff. And
Yeah.
snowboard.
Yeah, my wife and I are pretty outdoors people. We maybe a little less so since we had our toddler. We camp in an RV now more than we do backpacking, just for the convenience of being able to take care of a young kid. But yeah, we still love hiking. We try to get out when we can. Not as much as before we owned a brewery.
That'll happen. Fortunately, all of our children are grown. And out of the house.
Not all of them.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say not all of them.
Yeah, I have one of my children is still living at home for a little while. Actually, to be honest about it, is he is a help to us because he does a lot of the stuff that I don't want to do. Like get on the roof. But you were talking about hiking. He may be interested in talking to you sometime. He just a couple of years ago he completed the Appalachian
Oh wow
Trail, and he went from beginning to end in one piece. And just there's a lot of people that they chop it up. They'll do a little section, and they'll come back next year and do another section. But he took 6 months and he did it. So that's hiking. Something I can't do.
Yeah, the only hiking I'm doing is to the beer distributor or the brew pub.
Well, that sounds just what do you call it? So unhealthy. Hiking's healthy.
I do play racquetball.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's true. You do play a lot of racquetball.
So what I found out interesting, Brad, is your story. You and your wife, you met in college.
Yep.
And you both had a love for craft beer. It's an unusual for the male and the female to have a love for craft beer. And this is where this all stemmed from, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I was the nerd in college with a craft beer collection sitting in my house senior year.
That's pretty cool. And did you do any home brewing at that time, or was this something that because you had a love for it, you developed into trying to figure out home brewing, or how did that all come about?
We didn't actually homebrew in college. We started right when we got out. So 2007 timeframe, we graduated in 2006. So we went to Salisbury down by Dogfish Head. I think that's kind of what kind of got us going.
Yeah, you can go down there to Dogfish Head. That'll twist anybody's arm down there.
So obviously the craft beer scene in Salisbury and the Eastern Shore has grown a lot since then. Evolution and Burley Oak. But at the time, it was just really Dogfish over there.
So whose idea was it to do a business, since you guys are partners and working side by side with your spouse? It's not always an easy task. I mean, how does that manage?
I think, the idea came initially kind of together when we were looking at a outlet to sell hops and a kind of a way to get into the industry. The homebrew idea came as a way for her to get out of the career she had and do something that we had a little more control over, that a little more ownership of. Working with your spouse it can add a lot of extra stress, but it can also be, it's the person you can count on the most too. So I always know absolutely that the business is in great hands.
That's a positive. So I think it's phenomenal, the story that you guys have. And Dave and I've mentioned this numerous times. Every guest we have, their story is unique. And that's what's so interesting about what we're trying to do with this platform, is to bring your stories to life, because they're all unique, and yours is fabulous. You met in college, you developed you went into business together. You're growing hops. You started a brew supply store at one time.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome. Yeah, the story is just wonderful. Are you still growing hops?
We have the intent to relocate them actually to the property up in Railroad. Last summer was so busy that I actually didn't. It was the first year since I moved up here in 2010. I didn't tie the hops up, but maybe 5 or 10 of them, just enough to give me, but some for playing around and experimenting. So there was no big hop harvest last year. I still am. We're on the fence of whether we can get them in this year in time. Late March is usually when I would try to get all the rhizomes in. It's just prioritization of the first year at a new brewery takes a lot of extra effort, and hops also take a lot of extra effort. So the intent is still to get them up there on the property at Railroad, where I can work on them and also have the backup of some of my employees to help, and a little bit less DIY at this point on my own little farmette.
That's cool. So speaking of hops and beer and stuff, now do you got yours in front of you, or you have them in
the
front
beers?
of you?
Yeah, the cans. Yeah, I've got them.
All right.
I just
tell us a little bit about the first one that we're going to try.
The first one is Der Hund Hefeweizen. It's one of our older recipes that we came up with. It's all German ingredients. Try to a classic take on a German Hefeweizen. That label is our old German Shepherd. His name was Maximus. Fortunately, he passed away at the end of 2022, but he's immortalized on the label of Der Hund. So there's we weren't trying to break through any boundaries here. Being former homebrewers, you feel like there's always two things you're trying to do. You're trying to match some of the classic styles as closely as possible, as authentically as possible. And you're also trying to, on other recipes, be experimental and break outside the mold and really show off something new, something creative. This is kind of on the former side, where we do appreciate some of these classic styles. We didn't ever want to just be a hazy IPA factory only. Not that, I love hazy IPAs and we're going to taste one, but I love a lot of the traditional styles, and I think there's value in doing your best replication of them.
Correct. Right. So this is a classic Hefe. And if you can see, it's got a little haze, but it's fairly clear. Got good color. So this is to Der Hund. Did I say it right? Der Hund?
Yeah.
Hund.
All right.
So Hund, maybe, I don't know. I don't speak German. We just tried to name it after the dog.
Here's the Der Hund. Cheers.
Cheers.
It definitely is a Hefeweizen. That kind of that tangy notes coming in the back end of it. Very, very crisp and clean on the palate. Hefes aren't one of my favorite styles, but I will drink them. Very good. Kudos to the Der Hund. So,
yeah, I like this.
It's light, crisp, and clean. That's I guess 3 common words I could say. Did I hit the nail on the head when I said light, crisp, and clean? Yeah.
As close to traditional as we can be on this one.
That's good.
It's definitely the German Hefeweizen yeast, so a little bit more aggressive on some of the phenolics than the American Hefeweizen yeasts. So.
And that's kind of what, when we started getting into our own recipe development, just for us, since we live on Essex Road, which is traditional English, an old English city. I stuck to a lot of English traditional styles. So the first thing I did was an Irish red. I did an English IPA. I did a cream ale. That's not typical English, but then we did a Scottish wee heavy, a stout, and I just did an ESB, and that turned out pretty good. So, but yeah. And I kind of like when you stick to a traditional style and don't veer from it. But like you had said, a lot of people that we've talked to is like, that don't drink craft beer or go down this path. Oh, I don't like all that hoppy beer. Well, every beer has fucking hops in it. I'm just sorry. It does. But yeah, they assume IPAs with a craft beer, and that's it. So kudos. That's very good beer.
Yeah, good job.
So when you got into doing craft, and as you progressed through what you and your wife's plan was with the hops and then the brew supply, is that when you really started getting into home brewing? And how did you develop recipes through that if you didn't really have a background in it?
So we got into home brewing well before all of that. It was a lot of, I mean, you start at your local homebrew supply shop and you talk to the owner, a lot of online reading. I talked to other brewers, shadowed other brewers at times in commercial systems, and just you get as much knowledge as possible. But I love reading. I love listening to, audiobooks on things. So I try to soak up all the knowledge I can. I come from a technical background, more on the computer side, but I certainly like any science stuff has always been a complete, very appealing to me. I nerd out on it for lack of a better word. So
is that what you went to school for, is the computer IT stuff?
It's actually a mathematics major.
Oh, wow.
And then got into computer science after that. So
that kind of plays well. I mean, this is a science when it comes to brewing. And we found that out a long time ago that it's a big science. So you got a background for it.
So
that's pretty cool. So the brew supply, it's not open currently anymore, right? You guys closed that shop down?
Yeah, we shut that down at the end of last year. Just kind of had run its course. Currently, home brewing is not as popular as it once was. And it's just right now, my wife and I were stretched extremely thin with the 2 locations and the homebrew supply shop.
I can only imagine. I know as an automotive shop owner, I talked to several of my comrades, and they're like, when you open up a second and third location, I'm like, no. I got problems with just one. I don't need more than one location. So the story as we progress here, your third partner that you got in the business, Ken,
yep.
You met him at the homebrew supply. Is that how you
actually
got to know?
No, we met him before the homebrew supply shop. So he's been with us since the very beginning.
Okay. So this is going through. Okay.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a chance meeting. He was. We initially started with 4 of us, 4 business partners at the homebrew supply shop. One of them exited pretty early to pursue a tech startup. So, but of all things, Ken was going around. He had heard that a homebrew supply shop was opening in Bel Air through, I believe he had heard it through JR at South County Brewery up in Fawn Grove at the time.
Okay.
And he was trying to figure out who was opening it. And he dropped into Sean Boland's in Bel Air. It's a little Irish pub there. And my third business partner was sitting there watching, of all things, opening day for the Orioles. And they started talking. And next thing I knew, Ken had, expressed interest in opening the homebrew shop as well, joining in. And he's been a critical asset ever since. I mean, he's an electrical engineer. He's extremely, extremely good at fixing everything. And I mean, we can all consider ourselves handy people, but he's a wizard at stuff. It doesn't matter if it's a solder gun or if it's something much larger problem. He just always has a way to fix stuff, which at a small brewery, something's always breaking.
They're always good people to have on staff or no.
Yeah.
When it comes to that kind of stuff.
He was, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to hear.
He was an avid home brewer as well. So it was a chance meeting, and he ended up that the other business partner went off into the IT world or the tech startup world, and now it left the 3 of us to go through both breweries.
Wow. So how long did it take before you figured out you wanted to move up into the PA and expand up here? Because I've heard about you guys a long time ago down in Maryland. Unfortunately, I've never been down there to get there, visit that location. And then when I heard you guys were moving into PA, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, we got to get down there. So how did that progress that you guys you were ready to move into the next location?
So I kind of mentioned earlier a little bit. We were going to expand to a farm brewery in Harford County. That's one of the licenses under Maryland is to operate a brewery on a farm. So we were going to with a set of partners purchase an existing farm stand on 13 acres that was growing produce, add hops to it, and open a farm brewery. So that was kind of our natural evolution in Maryland. Unfortunately, the day before our zoning hearing, the county passed a moratorium on farm breweries in the county, an indefinite moratorium. So I tried to work with the local politicians. I'm not a political guy at all, so I didn't do a very good job, if you can't tell. And I, after a while, I kind of realized that I wasn't going to make forward progress fighting. I think I called it friction earlier. That's a good name for it. So we kind of went just back to the drawing board, and I remembered back to 2013, 2014 timeframe when I was starting the homebrew shop. We had started thinking about a brewery and homebrew shop, and one of the locations was in my mind was up in New Freedom, Shrewsbury area. Just being on the rail trail, that's one of the places most weekends I'd go ride my bike if the weather was good. And I just kept thinking, man, it would be nice to stop and have something in the craft beer industry here. So went back to the drawing board and started looking at properties there, and just by chance found a vacant building in Railroad.
Right off the train tracks too.
Right off the trail. We were looking along the trail, and we just saw that building, and I kind of pointed to my wife as we were driving by. I was like, that's the one we should put a brewery at. And ended up getting connected with the owner of the property, and kind of the rest is history. Started the zoning and build out process.
So, curious, just kind of curious on when you were in Maryland, what was the reason for the moratorium? I was just, they had to come up with other than we just don't like it.
I think some of the statements I got was that hop farms aren't real farms, and stuff in that realm was what was. We actually have a beer called Not a Real Farm that came out. That's actually brewed with. Yeah, well, I don't think I'm in much favor with those politicians of Harford County at this point. But we brewed that beer with sweet corn from my backyard field. I planted 3,000 years of sweet corn that year, and there's plenty of beers that are mashed with standard, starch corn, but I couldn't even find a good sugar profile for sweet corn, so we kind of just winged it. I wanted to see what it would do. It was it's actually delicious, but yeah, we have a label and all for that beer. So,
well, what was the one from Gift Horse? They got a cease and disorder.
Yes,
cease and desist order for the name that they put out on a beer.
That's what it was. Yeah.
So one of their beers is called Cease and Desist.
Cease and Desist. That's the name of the beer.
But
yeah, that's great. So I'm glad you're up in Railroad.
I am too. I think it worked out well.
I saw it. I think it was that about 2 years in the planning. You guys started to come up here. 2021.
Yeah. 21 is when the moratorium was passed. That was in May, and pretty much when that passed, I kind of said to myself, I'm not going to continue to do business in this county.
Hey, it's their loss, our gain. But how I found out about it is I was on the Sips and Shenanigans with Brewery Tours on the Ales for Rails, and as we got down there, I remember Glenn saying, Alecraft, this is going to be their new location in PA. And I was like, damn, I can't wait till that opens. And guess what? I have yet to come down except for a couple weeks ago when I finally made the visit. So it won't be my last. I can tell you that, Brad. It won't be my last down there. I will say when I was down there, my wife and I stopped in. Now, she is not a beer drinker. So she just kind of sat there and just watched me. But I forget the lady's name that was waiting on me at the bar. Wonderful personality. She asked a ton of questions. I think that's how Eryn finally reached out, because I gave her my card, told her what I do. But she had knowledge of every beer that you had on tap.
Whoa.
And I think from what I'm reading is all your staff has the knowledge behind the stuff that's on tap, which is wonderful because we've been in places we ask somebody, well, I don't know what it is.
It's beer.
It's beer.
Yeah, we try to keep everybody informed. And even at Bel Air, we even had a lot of homebrewers who worked as bartenders. Just because of the nature of it. So we would have the recipes back behind the bar so they could really get in there and talk about, the nuances of it. But yeah, we do try to train each of the bartenders on each of the beers that are coming out, and the tasting notes and what to expect, and what larger examples would be comparable to them. So if we have a wit on, if somebody's new to craft beer, just trying to introduce them. This is kind of similar to a Blue Moon because there's a lot of crossover traffic between craft beer aficionados and people who don't understand craft beer.
Yeah.
A quick question: Who's the big creator of the recipes? You, your wife.
Oh man, I want to say it's probably equal between the three of us, between me, Ken, and my wife.
Okay.
We did so much home brewing back in the days with all the brew classes that we taught, that it was just like, all right, this recipe stuck. Whose idea was that? This recipe is really good. Whose idea was that? So when we had our base library that we kind of came out with in Bel Air, most of those were from our home brewing days. And then actually our first year open in Bel Air, we brewed, I think it was 50 different beers in 52 weeks. Because that was the advantage of the nano system, was you could introduce a lot of new experimental styles. So we were still highly in that fun experimental stage up until, not that we don't get to experiment anymore, but when you're running a 7-barrel system and you're canning, you also want to keep your flagship brands readily available. So
I do appreciate that you guys do can. Now, do you distribute that, or is it just at your brewery that's pick up and go?
We do. We distribute now with Brewery Products in Pennsylvania. So I think they cover 14 counties, or maybe it was more than that. And then we're looking at starting a distribution deal with Maryland. In the past, we self-distributed in Maryland. But I think now just the extra hassle of self-distribution and the economies of scale we have with the 7-barrel system, it makes more sense just to focus on going through a third-party distributor.
Yeah, I think Dave would probably love to come down and take pictures of you guys brewing or the canning process.
Oh, yeah.
He likes doing that stuff, and it's always good content when we can promote you guys in any way possible. So what are some of the original recipes that you, your wife, and Ken developed that are still on tap, and these are the OGs? This is always going to be on tap at the location.
Okay, so you've got one, recalcitrant. That's Ken's ode to citra hops. So this is, in the infancy of the hazy IPA days, Ken came up with this one, and it's definitely our most popular New England style IPA. The other one that you've got there is Renard, that is the first kind of West Coast style IPA my wife and I ever brewed. Of course, it evolved over the years, but this one goes way back to the homebrew days. So
Dave, that's right up your alley, man.
Sure is.
Dave loves it when it's all nice and piney and stuff like you're chewing on grass.
Yeah, that's where I go. Exactly.
So this one's, I would call this maybe a more balanced one than like your more extreme West Coast IPAs, but it's by far, it's the go-to beer that my wife and I drink anytime. If it's a Friday night and we're going to have a beer, it's almost always going to start with a Renard.
Well, I tell you what, you mentioned this one here, and what'd you call it? The recalcitrant. You say it, Brad, because I think I'm going to fuck it up.
It's recalcitrant. It's the word of citra is embedded in there. Again, it's
see that did stand out. And you said this is Ken's recipe. So what kind of goes into this beer?
So it's primarily citra hops for all of the aroma, dry hopping additions, whirlpool additions. It does have some bittering hops up front, and then it's a pretty traditional New England IPA recipe. This one dates back pretty far, like I said, to probably before 2017. I think it was one of his homebrew recipes that we brought in. So it's not utilizing some of the newer stuff we do, like the cryo hops on some of the newer fun stuff, but it's a staple, and it's like one of our best selling beers. So there's no
Okay, here we're gonna cheers back in recalcitrant and have a taste.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm getting that citrus nose as you're bringing it up to your mouth, and then it's very creamy and smooth on the palate, and not overbiting. That's good. I enjoy that. And it's amazing. It used to be called New England. Now they're hazies and East Coast.
West Coast.
But that's good. That's almost like drinking a juice. So as you didn't say, is this one of your OGs, right?
Yeah, this one's been with us since we opened, I believe.
I can see me drinking that.
So it must be a pretty good seller. You keep it on tap for everyone.
Yeah, certainly. As New England's increased in popularity, 2018, 2019, it's probably been it rivals Renard for our best seller of all time. So
that's good.
And what of I had down there, something pine. What the heck was that one?
Hunger of the Pines. That's our 11th.
Hunger of the Pines.
Yeah.
I had that one. That one's definitely an acquired taste.
That one's more bitter. That one, so that it's more of a West Coast style. We did 11% kind of triple IPAs for over the winter, keep people warm in the winter. One of them was Silken Cloud, which was, smooth and hazy and soft on the palate. And then Hunger of the Pines was definitely meant to be more of an aggressive West Coast with a little bite to it. And
that's because she recommended I try it. So I gave it a try.
Mm-hmm.
and it was a good quality beer. It's just, okay, that little 5-ounce pour was good enough for me because I'm not a West Coast IPA guy, but I had to try it. And it was good. It was a good beer. And I think we've heard that from numerous brewers about Untapped and stuff like that, where people check your beers in and they give you like a Google review, a bad review, because they don't drink that beer anyhow, but they're going to check it in and give you a badass review. I think it's stupid. I appreciate what the beer is, whether I like it or not.
Yeah, it's a challenge to try to get rated against a palate versus a style, right? Like when you do BJCP judging, it's against the style, but in general, that's where the education of the bartender comes in and trying to let people know what they're getting so they don't get something they don't want. And then you can hopefully kind of pare down some of those negative reviews, like I don't like stouts or this salted caramel porter tastes like salt and caramel. It's in the name.
I think when you said about, not a real farm or brewery because you can't grow the hops and stuff. I mean, there's beers out there like Coors Light that's not a real beer. So that's just my opinion. This stuff's real beer. And, those who have not ventured into this and are afraid to venture into it because they like the Miller Lite, the Coors Light, they don't really know what they're missing. They don't know what craft the brewer like yourself and Ken and your wife, Eryn, put into making a quality beer, small portion, and giving it to the public and giving them a taste of something that is unique to you, the brewer. And I think that's what drew us into this platform and this whole community, is because it's a unique thing. And we appreciate everything that people like you do, because every beer is unique and every story is unique. And that's why we do this. It's just having fun.
I think a challenge that people who have a tough time getting away from, I would kind of stock beers, like Brett was talking about, the Icy Light, the Coors Light, the Miller Light. They're all light beers, of course. And
you always got to bring up Iron City, Pittsburgh, don't you?
Oh yeah, of course I do, because actually, I think we're still going to get a call from their president.
Just like I'm getting a call from Ben Roethlisberger.
From Ben Roethlisberger. We're still waiting on that one. Ben's supposed to give us a call, but we're still waiting. Anyhow, I lost track of what I was talking about.
I'm sorry.
What I was going to say is a lot of people that drink the stock beers, what they should do is they should challenge themselves. Like for you guys have on your site, I call it the philosophy of the beer. You have descriptions of the beer, the thinking that went into it, whenever it was. And what they should do is just find a beer that they could look at and say, I want to try this, not to put the taste up here, but put the philosophy of what the brewer was thinking about when he created the beer, and see if I can go taste that and try that beer and see if they can get out of that beer what the brewer was going to put into the beer and his thoughts when he put into it. And you should do that. I have to do that every once in a while because, whenever I get a beer, like a hazy IPA from the West Coast,
he's our connoisseur.
Where I'm forced to drink. You can't see it; it's off camera. I got guys over here with guns pointing at you. You will drink that. But anyhow, I have to think about what you had said about this beer, about what went into it to create this beer. So I wanted to see if I can get that taste out of this beer. Not just taste the beer and say, ugh, I don't like it because of this and that and this and that. So, and people should challenge themselves and do that.
And that's one thing we have learned is like, we're learning as we go. Like you guys know, and with your science background, your mathematics background, you're understanding what each hop, what the yeast strain, what malts you bring, what everything brings to that party. And that's what you guys are going for. We're learning that slowly. And I appreciate beers that concentrate on one hop or accentuate it, like in this one where it's the Citra, where you're going to get a lot of them citrus notes out of it. And that's what I'm learning as we go. I mean, my wife brought a book when she got me the brew kit, and it was about the brewing process, from start to finish. And I think it's over here, but I forget the name of it. But I don't read books. I think I read 3 in my entire life. I
wait for the movie to come
book.
out.
I actually fucking read that book.
Yeah.
Because this is something I was passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking it that you and your wife have that same passion with what you guys are doing, because it's been very successful. And
yeah, definitely.
I congratulate you guys and kudos. So a little bit about keep going about what's the future hold for Alecraft?
So probably by the time this podcast airs, the Bel Air location will have closed. So we've already announced it's basically too much for my wife and I and my business partner to try to manage 2 locations. It's just we thought we might be able to do it, and a year in, it's kind of come to the conclusion that it's better to focus on one spot. So we're in the process of winding down operations there and focusing solely on railroad. We're going to keep up with distribution in Pennsylvania, hopefully add back distribution in Maryland. So we'll still have a presence in Maryland for our customers down there who we've built over the last 7 years. And then I think for right now, it's just building a small community-based business. So we've got 4 acres there. We've got a nice stream, a rooftop deck, like you mentioned, 2 floors of tap room space. Just be a place that people can go, enjoy their day, get away from the real world for a little bit, enjoy nature, enjoy athletic activities like hiking and biking along the trail, and have hopefully great meal and a great beer that they enjoy out of the 20 we have on tap.
I think I commend you for with that thought process and figuring out, okay, hey, we got to cut back on something. Unfortunately, I don't know the word no. I just keep going, and someday I'm going to have a heart attack and die because I just don't know when to stop. But does this mean you're moving to PA? You're coming up north to our area where you're going to move across that?
Yeah, my wife and I have been in the market for probably since we started looking at railroad as a serious location. We got to find the right place. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's a good chance we'll end up living in PA or right across the line in Freeland, Maryland, or something. Just waiting on the right house to pop up. We like where we live right now, so it's got to check all the boxes.
Yeah, and I understand. And you got What kind of hops? So if you do grow hops, and you did, and you continue that, what hops did you grow?
So we tried a lot of different varieties. Obviously, none of the ones that, at least at the time of planting, you can only get the ones that are kind of older, the newer varieties like Citra under like patent with the growers out there in Washington State. So we got Cascade rhizomes, Columbus, Centennial. We tried some noble hops, Hallertau. We tried Mount Hood was another one that we grew. I think at one point we had 12 or 13 different varieties that we were growing.
That's a lot.
By and large, Nuggets, Cascades, and Columbus are the three that we had the most success with in this climate. A lot of the European hops just didn't seem to want to grow as aggressively in our soil types with our, irrigation schedule, because we kept that the same for all the hops. So lessons learned, I'd probably just stick with the varieties that do pretty well for yield, because there's a lot of work to do the hops. So,
and did that come from a lot of like research and stuff, like on how to farm, or did you grow up on a farm?
I didn't grow up on a farm per se. My father ran like a roadside produce stand, so
you have a little farming background. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I grew up helping him pick tomatoes on occasion, and I don't know that I was the most productive worker. I liked, riding my bike more than picking tomatoes. But
I don't think any of us kids were.
I definitely got a little bit of that passion for gardening and just the green thumb, I guess, from my father. And then a lot of the hops was just lesson learned. I feel like every year for the first 6 or 7 years, it was a new problem that I had to solve, whether it was Japanese beetles coming in and turning them to lace, or a particularly humid year when we got downy or powdery mildew on the hops, or a particularly dry year where I didn't have the irrigation system right. It was just always something. So, if I was going to do it all over again, I have a lot of lessons learned, which is kind of a very similar thing to opening a brewery in Bel Air. And then, the second shot at doing a brewery, you have a lot of lessons learned. You're like, if I could do it again, I'll do it this way. So that's the nice part about the railroad location, is it is 5-6 years of lessons learned going into that location.
And as far as going back to my dad had a green thumb. The only green thumb I got is I can kill a plant pretty quick. The one thing I did hate about growing up is lima beans. I love lima beans, but picking them and shelling them. Green beans was another one. We did corn, and it was a family project. So when we put away corn, like you had mentioned, you did a beer with sweet corn.
Yeah,
I would love to try that when that comes out again. When you kind of dial it in, that's a true cream ale to me. But I remember as a kid growing up when we did a family that we're going to put corn away in the fall, and we're talking like 30, 40 fucking dozen. What's us kids have to do? We got to husk it all. I hate that. And just recently, my wife's like, I want to put corn away. So I'd order 10, 11 dozen. And guess who wasn't here the day that the corn was ready? My wife. So I'm in my garage husking 10, 11, and they actually gave me an extra dozen or two. So 12, 13 dozen of corn. By the time she shows up, it's cooking. All we got to do is cut it off. Like, yeah, you missed all the fucking fun.
That's why she wanted to get the corn, because she wasn't going to be there.
She wanted it this past year, and I'm like, no, we got plenty in the freezer yet. Actually, we don't.
So, well, I guess
we're due for another freezer corn day, but I'm going to make sure she's here.
I understand if another one of your favorite vegetables is asparagus.
Oh God, I hate asparagus. I hate asparagus. There ain't nothing that eats that. Like the rabbits don't even eat asparagus. It's the only thing that eats it are stupid humans. I'm sorry. If you like asparagus, then I just called you a stupid human. I can't stand it. I know it's supposed to be good for you, but I can't do it. I think it's great. I mean, that you guys are growing your own crop.
That's amazing.
It is. She had an idea one time to grow tomatoes and peppers.
Well, that's not hard.
No, but they grow pretty abundantly.
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
And they always come in around late August, early September and we're never home. And all these tomatoes come in. So yeah.
Yeah,
so
we did a beer with. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Would you?
I was gonna say we did a beer with sweet potatoes one year as well. Called it Yam Jam. It was a fall beer. So
I have seen that.
How did it fare?
It did pretty well. So I mean, it was a brown ale, and we didn't do. It was a small bit of sweet potatoes. It was one of our experimental ones on the small 1-barrel system. So, we were just kind of easing in there with playing with what we could do there. So,
do you have a group of people who'd come in just for the experimental beer, just so that they can taste the experimental stuff that you guys are messing around with, like the pumpkin beer? Of course, I've had that.
So the first year and almost all the years in Bel Air, having the homebrew shop attached to the actual physical premises of the brewery, most of the homebrewers were very excited about what we were doing experimentally, and then we worked with them as well. On that side, we would do competitions and tastings and judging contests. So there was a lot of crossover, I think, from the homebrew traffic crowd. And then, of course, we did our staple beers as well, for the people who weren't homebrewers and weren't as interested in what crazy stuff we could do with sweet corn or sweet potatoes.
So you said your system, I think you mentioned earlier, is 7-barrel. Is that at the railroad section location?
Yeah, that one is at the railroad location. Yep.
And then you just mentioned you have a small pilot system, a 1-barrel, and is that one still in Maryland, or is that one up there at the railroad as well?
That one's still in Maryland. So under the way the Maryland licensing works, we still have to brew in Maryland a certain percentage of the beer that's sold in the tap room in Maryland. So we were still keeping that in operation in Maryland
for now. So when you guys finally close that operation down, which is unfortunate, we never like to hear that a place has to close a location down, whether for one reason or the other. Will that pilot system remain in play, that you guys can do your experimental stuff like the Yam Jam and all that kind of stuff?
We'll probably sell that system. We have a different experimental, smaller pilot system even up in Railroad that we can play. So we're not going to stop experimenting, but we probably don't need to be doing pilot batches at that large of a scale. And it's better just to kind of move on from that system and use what we've got up in Railroad right now.
And no, Dave, I'm not purchasing a 1-barrel system.
It's 2 barrels now. It's
2 barrels. No, that is a definite no.
There's room in the garage.
Your garage?
No, there isn't.
That's like, it's funny when we did brew my recipe with Sign of the Horse a few weeks ago. Kevin and Dave both looked at me and said, "Well, so how long it is till you get a system like this in your garage?" I'm like, no, not. I'm not doing it. I mean, I've joked about having a brewery of my own, but I like my weekends way too much, and I like doing this way too much. This is fun. If I'd have a brewery, I wouldn't have time to do this, or come down to Alecraft and visit Brad and Eryn.
Yeah, you'd be busy.
I'd be busy running my own. So, Do you find it does take time away a lot? Like, do you get out to visit some of the other breweries in your community area, or because we know Colton from Fallen Branch?
Okay. I don't get out as much as I did before we owned a brewery, for sure, but we do definitely still try to get to new breweries when they pop up, as much as we possibly can. So I've been to a lot of the local ones in the Southern York County area as I have moved up there. We've obviously been to most of the local ones in the Baltimore, Hartford, and Baltimore City areas. Not as much the city, just it's the time to brew tour is much more limited. Like you mentioned, weekends are the high point for breweries, so a lot of those are taken up. And I think I mentioned that we have a young kid, so that since
takes up a lot of
2021,
time.
that's also taking up a lot of time. It's wonderful, but not as much time for brew touring like we had in our 20s and early 30s.
So, is it a boy, girl, and is this your first?
It's boy. He's our first and only so far.
So plans for more?
I think we'd be open to it.
Oh, there we go. Well, congratulations. I mean, yeah, I still look like we have. I have a grandson. It's my wife's son's grandson, and he'll be 11 this year. And I'm like, where did that time go? And I look at my kids, at their ages. I'm like, holy shit, am I that old? And where did that time go? So truly enjoy their. Yes, it's sometimes stressful. Like, I can't wait till they can do this. Can't wait till it goes quick. Yeah. We do have another beer sitting here, and I think you had mentioned this is another OG.
Renard, yeah, I think so.
And this is so tell us again, this is the West Coast, right?
Yeah, this is a West Coast style IPA. It's probably a little more balanced than some of your more bitter West Coast. So that's a big thing for beer with me. Like when I'm coming up with a recipe and I'm refining it, I really like balance. I like stuff that I can come back to and have 2 or 3 of. There's a lot of really good beers that I've had that it's like I would have the 5-pack in my fridge, right? I would buy back in the days a bottled beer. I'd get a 6-pack and I would really enjoy it, but it was either too intense of a flavor or not balanced enough where I just found myself having 5-packs sitting in the fridge. So as I refined all of my recipes and worked, we were always going to try, to get a beer that you could come back to. So this is kind of that. In the West Coast IPA realm for us, what we came up with as our favorite. So, like I said, this is my wife and I's favorite, and
it almost looks like an amber ale. It has like an amber ale coloring.
It's definitely more copper colored.
It smells delicious.
You was talking about it's kind of curious about the 5-pack. I always tell everybody you can't see it on camera, but we have flights in front of us. And I can always tell everybody, let everybody know that you can tell whether I liked your beer or not. You can look at my flight, because if there's just a little tiny bit out of the top of the glass and the rest of it's still sitting in the flight,
It smells delicious. So this is called Le Renard. And it's a French thing.
Le Renard.
Yeah. So you've stumbled upon another beer that's named after one of our pets, but our first dog that my wife and I got was an Australian cattle dog, a red heeler, and we lived kind of close to the city at the time. And every time we'd walk her, people would be like, "That dog looks like a fox. Is that a fox?" So Renard means fox.
The picture does look like a fox.
Yeah. So that's the story with the name. This beer goes back to 2007, 2008, right when we first started homebrewing, and it was just what can we make that's our favorite IPA, and then we evolved it over the years. We got a malt profile we liked, and then we evolved the hops. But at some point, probably early 2010s, we kind of set this one in stone as this is how it's going to be.
And if you're not evolving, you're not moving forward. And so kudos. Here is to Le Renard, West Coast India Pale Ale. Cheers.
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 You know what? That is, I'm almost it now. Everybody's palate's different. It is not over hoppy and bitey like you would typically get with a West Coast.
No, it's got a little bit on the end. You'll taste it kind of on the back of your palate, but
now what I'm getting on my back of my palate, what I was getting at is I get a little coffee note coming in the back end. Now that's just my palate, and it may be
interesting.
It's
You've been drinking too much coffee.
That's fucked up, and I've had 2 pots today. But that's why I think, even when Dave and Kevin, our third counterparters here, and we'll have the same beer, we all have a different palate, and we taste something different every time we drink it. And it may be just the hops that are just giving me that in my head, that lingering, like, oh, that tastes like, I'm getting a coffee back end.
Yeah, I could taste the hops.
But it is not overbitey. So this is I could drink this.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, he's drinking his beer.
Drinking it.
So kudos, Brad. You made Dave drink a West Coast.
So this one's been kind of fun, taking it from the homebrew scale, which we did for years, had a consistent. And then when we got it to the 1 barrel, we had to make relatively minor changes to it to get it to come out consistent. Even with all the best brewing software in the world, there's hop utilization issues, and just things turn out different on a larger scale. So you're trying to tweak it to get it back to where it was. And then we had to go through a very similar process up in Railroad when we went to 7 barrels. And you're just like, oh, first time we got it, too much bitterness. Like you can compare it side by side with the one we're brewing in Bel Air and get them as closely tuned as possible.
And we heard that from other brewers. Like, if you if you upscale a recipe, like ours was, for instance, a 5-gallon, and they upscaled it to a 2-barrel, and it was something different about it. The flavor profile was there, but there was something different about the beer. And we heard about that with some breweries that they just opened up. They were home brewers like yourself, and now they're working on a 2, 3, or 4-barrel or whatever. And it's till you get your system dialed in and you figure out how the nuances of it makes a difference. And you're being a mathematician and scientific about it. You can vouch for that it does make a difference in the beer until you get it dialed in.
Yeah, definitely on the hop side. There are mash differences as well, but the hop utilization and how much bitterness you're getting is highly dependent upon your volume. And it feels like sometimes even the best brewing software, they'll do an estimation as they scale it, but it doesn't always come out in the actual end product. You can do them side by side based on the software calculations and still end up having to make further adjustments just to get it back honed in perfectly consistent. So
who's the better brewer? Ken, yourself, or your wife?
Oh boy.
Oh gosh.
I'm throwing you under the bus.
Yeah, put the man on the spot here.
You don't have to answer that. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
His wife's
I'll give you a politician answer. I think we all are better at certain things in brewing. So I think, Ken is really good at innovation. Like he's very good at finding new ways to do stuff. Even as a home brewer, he was always trying a different, he followed a podcast that always did like triangle tests of tasting. Could you tell the difference between no chill beer versus chilling a beer fast versus chilling it, at a medium velocity? And just all the old brewing adages. So that was Ken. He was always innovative. I think for me, I was probably the nerd of wanting to read about as much traditional brewing science as possible, and really just get into also the business side. And then I think Eryn's just great at execution and coming up with recipes and just keeping the business going. So we've all stepped into the brew house and done our part, but we all sort of have different things that we bring to the table. So often our recipes are just a collaboration of ideas or a compromise between the 3 different drives of where this goes. So
I think, which one did I bring back when I emailed Eryn back? Is it Orion? Is that yours?
No, that's Eryn's.
Oh my God.
That's Eryn's recipe.
That was a fucking great beer. I loved it. And I did. When I was trying to get you guys scheduled, I said, oh, by the way, I brought a 4-pack of the Orion back, and I loved it. Dave, I don't think I have any left. I'm sorry.
Goes to show it.
So that's Eryn's original.
That was really good.
So Yeah, there's no like central. I would say there's no centralized. This person is always responsible for creating the recipes, and this person's always the best brewer. I think we're all bringing different things to the table, and the three of us work really well together. And
And that's a more than true answer, because of the fact that that's the same thing with a lot of things. It's like I'm into photography, and I go out on shoots. I've gone out with your wife. Oh, you didn't know that. Anyway,
I did know that. I'm sorry. No wonder she doesn't want to have me.
But I've gone out on shoots with Sally and with Albert and with Josh, and we all have different ways of shooting the same picture. And the thing of it is there's nothing wrong with any of them. They're just different, and it's complementary of one to the other.
Yeah, that's
and,
just what I was going to say. Yeah,
and that's what you have to look at. And I think the same way with brewing is just the fact that, if you see something that someone has done and you like it, ask them how they did it. And what did you do? I want to do the same thing. That's kind of cool. And that's what we do. So
I think that's where any business or relationship, for that matter, you find a partner that can accentuate, where you're weak at, they're strong at, and that's what balances the whole platform. And I think that's the story that I found when I finally got to get you guys to commit to do this podcast, is the story behind what you and your wife started. You met in college. You both had a similar love, and you guys took it to the next level, like traveling down this craft. No, Dave, we're not getting married, because you had the similar love for craft beer, that you guys had almost the same vision, and where one was weak, the other was strong, and you've accentuated what you guys are part of. And the product that you're putting out that we've had here tonight, and what I had when I was down there, it's a, what I want to say, it's a kudos to what you guys are doing. It's
Thank
fabulous. And I commend you guys for traveling that path, because like I mentioned in the beginning of this, working with your significant other or your spouse is not always the easiest task. I'll vouch for that from my first marriage, but it can work. And you guys are living testament to that. So kudos. Is Eryn going to be able to pop on here for a few minutes or not? Text her.
I'm hoping she'll be to make that. I'll text her again. Let me
that's
edit this.
So what goes on at Alecraft and Railroad then? Is you guys got live stuff, music, anything like that? Weekly stuff that goes on?
Yeah, so we do trivia every Tuesday night. In the wintertime, every Friday and Saturday, we have live entertainment. So musicians come in. We ramp that up a little bit during the summer. And then we do monthly like oyster fests, where a guy comes in and
oyster fest.
He's
oyster fest,
he's
like
there.
Raw oysters,
like raw oysters. Yeah,
he's there.
So it was just last weekend. We had 1,300 oysters we sold last weekend.
Oh,
and they're delicious. I had some.
I will keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, we do that, and then throughout, with the outdoor space in the summer, we have like family fun days all summer long. Rent a bouncy house and have outdoor games. So pretty much all the time when we have good weather, we have the outdoor space open. You can sit along the stream on the quiet side and have a beer, or you can kind of be up by the patio where more of the action's going on. And then we have happy hours weekly, food specials weekly. So we try to be, like I said, a community neighborhood establishment that also caters to a little bit of the destination feel. If you can come out for a Saturday and spend the day and be entertained
and say hello to the train as it goes on by.
That's right. And we've worked with the train as well for a couple of excursions where they stop at our brewery. So we'll get a train full of people come in. So,
I'm going on that Simpson shenanigans. So I'll tell you if
you
they
are.
do.
That's kind of cool.
So I commend you and your wife and Ken, your other partner, for what you guys have created. I heard about you guys a long time ago, and I'm finally glad that we could get you guys to sit down here and tell us your story. Uh, this has been great to get to know you a little bit, Brad, and I'm hoping sometime we can meet in person, that we can have more conversation, have a few beers. Maybe you could try our ESB and you want to brew that one. I don't know.
I'd love to try it.
I hate to toot my own horn. I did a little side by side with a Forest in Maine, their best bidder, and color everything profile was identical to what theirs was. Theirs was a little bit more clarified than mine, but I was like, fuck, I tapped myself in the back. Yeah, my head's.
I wanted to see if this was broken from you banging yourself on the back. Patting yourself on the back. That shoulder should be out by now.
And like I said, we got to meet your one guy. You said that was Ken at the Winter Brew Fest, right? He didn't tell me it was
no.
brewer. He
Gary.
Gary.
No. Was
I'm sorry,
Gary.
Yeah. But yeah, he was like, "Are you Brad?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm supposed to give you this." I'm like, "Yeah, that's for the recording. You guys gonna hop on here too?" I guess he was there by himself. He didn't get a chance to come over and sit down with us in our little VIP booth that we had.
Well, that was nice. That booth was excellent.
It was compact. It was compact,
but it was nice. We were busy. I couldn't believe people just coming in and out.
We even had a couple people that were there just as guests that wanted to hop on.
Yeah,
and just I'm like, come on up, we'll record with you. We enjoy those brew festivals. I don't know what you guys feel about them as a commercial brewer. Going to the brew fest to get your ideology out, your beers out. And I think I did read that in your about us on your webpage at alecraft.beer.
Yeah.
Correct?
.beer.
Yep.
That's not the first one we've had on here, but I thought it was pretty unique when you can get a .beer, not a .com. You can buy a .beer. Your about story was the idea of starting a brewery was you were going to the homebrew competitions or craft festivals like that, and they're like, where can I get this? And we've heard that from hundreds of people. Like, hey, I like your home brew, but where can I get it? Well, you can't. I'm just a home brewer. You're just sitting here drinking my beer.
That's
Come to my house and drink my beer for free. So I think, is that where it all started? When you go into these craft festivals and people starting to ask, where can we get this? That, you knew you and your wife had something that was positive.
Yeah, I think so. Between like going to HomebrewCon and sharing beer with strangers and people who are certified BJCP judges, and also just the customers at the homebrew shop, we would we'd have opportunities to sample beer at times with them, and there was kind of a consistent, if you guys sold this, we'd buy it. So that kind of led us down the road of. We thought, could we just add a one barrel system to this homebrew shop and brew some of these experimental? So the original dream, I don't think, was like it was never a regional craft brewery. Let's be the next Sierra Nevada or even a traditional brew pub. It was more like, we have the homebrew shop and let's try to sell some of these recipes that people really like. And of course, you evolve your vision over time with the realities of running a business. And then the idea of having the homebrew shop inside didn't comply with Maryland laws. Like having the actual brewery inside the homebrew shop, they had to be separate. There had to be a separation of premises. So that whole initial vision didn't work out the way we thought it might. But in the end, that got us into the idea of selling our beer versus just being, in the creative side and in the homebrew side. And once we started selling it, the reception was good, and we started expanding. And again, still not the vision to be a regional or go into regional distribution. It's more just to stay community centered, focused on the Southern York County, PA area, and do something that we're passionate about, something that we love, something that can be a creative outlet for us. And that at the end of the day, we're proud of this product that we're putting out.
Well, you damn well should be, because everything we've had so far has been phenomenal. From the traditional hefeweizen to the two different IPAs, and I can't wait to try this last one. I'm assuming Eryn's not going to make it on here.
She might be able to. She might be able to drop in here for a second. I think she just got the kid to bed. Come on, just for a second.
Come on, pop in, Eryn. Just pop in and say hi. I've been bugging you with the emails for how long? Is she gonna come on, or is she gonna be bashful?
I think she's going to be bashful.
Okay. Brad, I tell you what,
right.
I've had a wonderful time getting to know you. And we're going to have to eventually get down there as a crew and get to sit down with you and Eryn in person and just chit chat and have a few beers. Dave, any last comments?
No, it's pretty good. I thought this was a pretty good session. And even though you guys did flood me with West Coast IPAs, I survived.
He drank it all.
I drank it all.
He drank it all.
I drank it all. That's the whole thing. And I'm not embarrassed to tell you that I don't like this, but there was nothing here that I didn't like. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it all. So you do pretty good job. You know,
Thank you.
If you can please a sourpuss like me, there you go.
Don't worry, he's going to give you a one bottle cap review on Tapped.
Oh yeah, when you wait till you get to your Untapped reports there.
So, Brad, before we get out of here, give us one last time where they can find Alecraft Brewery, physical location, online. I even though I have it sitting above us up here with your website. Let's hear it from you.
So our website's www.alecraft.beer, and our physical location is just off of I-83 over the Maryland line into Pennsylvania. It's in Railroad, which is between New Freedom and Shrewsbury, just 2 miles off of the first exit into Pennsylvania off I-83.
Yeah, it's not that hard to find. It's not that hard to find. And it's definitely worth your travel. Now, before we get out of here, I did notice that you do like to snowboard as well. You probably haven't got a lot of that done this year because of everything else going on. Even though it's been a fairly good winter, where have you snowboarded that you truly enjoy?
So this year I haven't gotten out at all, which is not a big surprise given the business. But I used to enjoy a big West Coast trip every year. So I really like the mountains around Salt Lake City. Snowbird was a good one. And then I enjoyed the Colorado mountains, so Breckenridge and Copper.
Oh, yeah, the big, nice, big mountains.
Yeah. So I would traditionally try to do a trip out west once a year. After I got kind of tired of the smaller East Coast stuff.
We got hills compared to those things, but it is what we have on the East Coast here. It's what we're stuck with. It's basically frosted ice that we ski on, but at least it gets.
But hey, the last one I went to was Round Top a couple years ago.
That's just a hill. That's just a little hill.
I got up there for a day. That's an accomplishment when you own a business. So.
I still couldn't ski down Gun Barrel without being on my ass. So even though it's a little hill, I'd never survived the big ones. My wife got a text message from her son that lives in Tacoma area right now. And him and his wife went up to Canada. And next thing I know, that she's getting a text message that he's in the hospital.
Oh, jeez.
Because he cut his chin.
Oh.
I'm not used. I wouldn't know what to do on those kind of mountains, but at least I realize you got your own business. You have a child. It's tough to get out and do that, what you enjoy. I will encourage you to at least try and take some time to do that before next thing you know, you're our age and you're like, what the hell happened? I shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
Don't ever have the shoulda, coulda, woulda moments. Do what you truly enjoy. And from what we've talked to and we learned about you and Eryn and Ken and Alecraft Brewery today, you guys are doing what you truly enjoy, and keep it up because I'm looking forward to more from Alecraft Brewery. We do got one last beer sitting here, and this is going to be our cheers beer. So tell us a little bit about this one. Oh, you got the can.
I have the can.
This is the coffee stout, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the coffee stout.
So tell us a little bit about what goes in with this one.
So this is one of our staple stouts, but the main thing in here is we've always tried to source local coffee to put in here. So we started in Bel Air with a local roastery down in the festival area, coffee. And now we've actually started using New Freedom Deli and Roastery right in New Freedom locally. So they're providing all the beans and roasting and coffee that goes in here. So trying to balance some of the coffee bitterness with a selection of some more malty or sweeter malts, and just get a drinkable stout that's got just those hints of the coffee flavor in it. And I will say that the beans that we're getting from New Freedom, this is the best it's ever turned out. We use their coffee in our tap room too. So
it smells delicious. And I did notice that before we got here, you guys had a little roaster on the side of the bar over there. You guys can do like fresh coffee pours. So you're not only bartenders, you got baristas going on.
Yeah. We have an espresso machine that we open up during the summer months to do the Astral espresso drinks. We don't keep a barista on all winter, just it's off season for beer. But when that trail is hopping and the outdoor area is open, we fire up the espresso machine and do the cappuccinos and lattes and espresso shots.
Brad, I don't know about you, but we've had a wonderful time having you sit here with us online on our recording.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to see what Alecraft Brewery does in PA and continue what your vision is, your passion, and keep going what you're doing between Ken and your wife Eryn and yourself. So we're going to get out of here. We're going to raise a glass. I don't care what you have in it. Let's raise a glass with Brad, Eryn, his wife, and Ken, their brewer from Alecraft Brewery in New Freedom and Bel Air currently, and Dave and myself and the CPP, and let's all be bonded by beer. Cheers.